To be a fascinating analysis. We're going to get into the heads of the globalists here to try to understand what they are thinking when they released this global pandemic and engineered this weapon against human beings, the Wuhan coronavirus, so-called COVID-19. Now, in the last week, I've become convinced that this release was deliberate. Originally, I thought it was an accident. That was the most likely explanation. There was a virology lab in Wuhan, and the Chinese were playing around with this biological weapon. They were engineering it, adding in what's called gain-of-function properties. We have a history of the accidental release of SARS viral strains from similar labs across China 4 times over the last, 15 years or so. So it seemed reasonable that this might have been an accident. But now I'm convinced that it was a deliberate release made to look like an accident. So let's start with some basics here. We know that, of course, there are many, we'll call them globalists. They're just, wealthy elite people who run the world. They influence all the decision makers. Many of them are more powerful than governments. People like Bill Gates, who's a strong influencer. Some are billionaires and some are not. Some are just scientists, but they have a lot of influence. And what they are seeing is the total destruction of the biosphere, that Earth is being destroyed by humankind. Now, they're not wrong in that observation. They see, as probably you and I see, the total collapse of pollinators across the world. Did you realize there's a 70 or 80% collapse of insect biomass in Europe, according to studies? And did you know that if we lose the insects, everything else dies eventually? We lose the pollination, we lose the food supply, we lose human civilization. Did you know the oceans are dying? The globalists see that too. They see the mass plastics pollution, so-called microplastics in the oceans. They see the mass die-offs, the dead zones. Everywhere that a river from a human-populated continent empties into the ocean, there's a massive dead zone there. The agricultural chemicals, the runoff, the pollution, the heavy metals, the biohazards, all that. The globalists also see the loss of habitat. So much habitat has been destroyed, habitat that supports the biosphere, the ecosystem that sustains us all. And if you lose habitat, then the animals can't survive, and the insects can't survive, and the birds can't survive, and the pollinators can't survive, and everything collapses. So habitat destruction is very serious right now when you have the clear cutting of rainforests to grow genetically modified soybean products in Brazil, for example. But think about all the clear cutting in the state of Texas, where I live. You look around Texas and entire forests are missing because it's been bulldozed to make grazing ground for cattle, which seems insane. Why can't you leave some trees, Well, the answer is the more trees there are, the less grass grows, and so the cattle ranchers don't want any trees, even though the trees provide shade for the cows and help protect the moisture in the soil and so on. But a lot of places in Texas are just bulldozed down to the level of no more than 1 tree per acre. In fact, I've even heard that as a rule of thumb in Texas, that when you clear the land, leave 1 tree per acre. That's insane. There should be thousands of trees in that acre. But that's just one example. The collapse of the biosphere is here. Soil erosion is going to collapse the human food supply. The overuse of fossil water systems, such as the Ogallala water aquifer underneath Oklahoma and Kansas and parts of Texas and so on. It provides much of the water for the so-called breadbasket of the United States, the food production system. That water is going to be gone within, another generation. You've got the collapse of diversity of plants and the rise of monoculture, mechanized agriculture to grow GMO corn, for example, when those fields used to have 5,000 different species of plants and weeds and herbs and different soil microbes and strong diversity. And then you've got just piles and piles of trash everywhere. Human plastic trash and waste products everywhere. The point is that humans really are destroying this planet. Humans are causing a mass extinction event. Now, where I disagree with the globalists and the fake scientists is they claim that carbon dioxide is causing all this. They say it's global warming or climate change. They're just trying to use that because they can't explain all these other things, like the heavy metals contamination and the pesticides in the food supply, the soil erosion, the loss of fossil water, the collapse of pollinators, and so on. Those concepts are too complex for the general population to be able to process, so they just make up something new and they say, it's just carbon dioxide's bad. they know that's a lie, but they're using it to try to claim that humanity has to be seriously depopulated. And that's why you have all these left-wing people coming out and saying that the only answer is to drastically reduce human population, they say. Even some of them are just saying no one should have children anymore, that it's bad to have kids. And then you see these attacks on fertility and the rise of transgenderism, which is also about trying to blur the lines between male and female, because the entire sustainability of the human species is based on binary sex, a mother and a father combining their genes through sexual reproduction to make new organisms, new babies, and that requires a mother and a father. And even that line is being blurred as another way to cause widespread infertility. And then, of course, you've got vaccines, which are frequently laced with infertility drugs. This has been part of the soft kill method, or you could call it maybe soft population reduction. If you have higher infertility rates, you have lower natural numbers of births. So you've seen a lot of vaccines being pushed in African nations, especially Nigeria, which is set to explode to eventually the world's third most populous nation, following China and India, if current trends continue. A lot of people don't know that, but population explosions are happening in Africa. So getting into the minds of the globalists here, what they are saying and what they're observing is that they think the planet can't survive much of this much longer. And they needed to find a way to eliminate much of the human population without having another Third Reich Holocaust. So they tried infertility drugs in the vaccines. They've tried mass pesticide poisoning. They've tried chemtrailing. Actually, they're still working on that. They're going to alter the atmosphere and block the sun and cause a global food collapse. That's an ongoing project, actually funded by Bill Gates, come to think of it. It's called Project Scopex. And I've written about that extensively. It involves even Harvard scientists who are running that, and they say that the answer is to block some percentage of the sun, bounce sunlight away from the planet so that plants don't have the energy to engage in photosynthesis. You'll have a global collapse of rainforests and the food supply, and the planet will get cooler, as if there were a giant volcano that ejected billions of tons of particulate matter into the atmosphere. Yeah, the planet gets cooler for a couple of years because you're blocking the sunlight. Well, that's what they're going to do, artificially. And this is part of their plan as well. But all of these are going to take quite a lot of time, you see. Even the chemtrail geoengineering, or what I call terraforming experiment, that's going to take decades. And I believe that a lot of these globalists have come to the conclusion that the planet doesn't have decades remaining, that if humanity continues along at its current pace and its current actions, that humanity will destroy the planet and destroy itself, a giant suicide race, at the same time. And that even the globalists would find themselves living in a totally collapsed society, which they don't want. They want a lot fewer people, but they want to remain in charge over a global utopia or whatever they imagine, that's where all the labor is run by robots and they've got automated systems and a few people still remaining who own all the land and have all the assets and run the robots and run the corporations. The Jeff Bezos people of the world. That's what they envision. And yeah, they'll keep enough humans around to program the robots and repair the robots and build the robots. Kind of like Matt Damon in that movie. What was it, Elysium? Pretty interesting vision of the future. You have the global elite in their orbiting space station, and then Earth is just in total state of collapse, but that's where the manufacturing takes place and basically the slave labor factories. Well, except in the real future that the globalists have planned, they don't need humans. It's a post-human future that they're planning. So what's the easiest way for them to carry that out? Release a bioengineered weapon system. Release a pandemic that is specifically engineered to kill only one species on the planet. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't kill gorillas, doesn't kill dolphins or even armadillos. It kills just one creature on Earth, Homo sapiens, the one that the globalists believe is destroying the planet and causing mass extinction. So this weapon is designed to not just cause an initial wave of destruction, but to then keep coming back year after year, wiping out more and more of humanity with each subsequent mutation. We have Dr. Redfield, the head of the CDC, now admitting this is going to come back every year, kind of like the seasonal flu. There'll be a new strain year after year. He said that he already expects community outbreaks and the return of this even beyond this year. The CDC knows where this is headed, because I think the CDC knows this is an engineered bioweapon. The globalists most certainly know it, and most importantly, when they developed this weapon, they co-developed the vaccine in parallel. And this is why the Purebright Institute, for example, has intellectual property of both the vaccine and the virus itself. Pretty clever, isn't it? If you're building a weapon to wipe out humanity, make sure that you and your buddies in the global elite halls of the world, that you have the antidote, i.e. a clean vaccine that's designed to work instead of being designed to fail. And that's what they have. So they've got the vaccine and they've got the weapon. And then all they had to do was pay somebody, some China spy or somebody, to take these materials, steal them from a lab in Canada, bring them to the virology lab in Wuhan, China, and then deliberately release it onto the streets. And even the person who did it may not have known what he was releasing. Probably was told this is some kind of a low-grade influenza experiment involving some, mutation of some common harmless flu strain or something. They probably had no clue what they're doing. And you know the rest of the story, so now from there it spreads and it mutates and it goes from country to country, now over 28 nations and territories, and it infects cruise ships and it infects airplanes and airports and eventually gets to every major city around the world. And as that happens, the consequences fulfill every goal of the globalists. You have depopulation, and then you have the invocation of medical martial law requiring everybody to get vaccinated with your new vaccine. That's the public version of the vaccine. It's probably laced with some live viruses to make sure that the pandemic accelerates. Yes, you'll have an economic collapse, but you can blame the virus for it instead of blaming your own failed central bank policies. You can hide that fact if you have a big enough pandemic that crushes every economy on a global scale. And now think about this. In China, as this pandemic is breaking out across the cities, factories are shut down. One of the ways that everybody knows that is we're monitoring the pollution emissions from Chinese cities via satellite, and guess what? The pollution levels have plummeted, proving the point of the globalists who say, wow, if we can release enough pandemics, the air gets cleaner. So you now have, quite literally, globalists watching the Earth from orbiting satellites and seeing direct, immediate evidence that the air is getting cleaner, the water is getting cleaner, the planet may be starting to heal because they were willing to release a pandemic that's going to spread around the world and kill the people that are running the factories, especially in China, polluting the oceans, polluting the rivers, polluting the soils, emitting toxic polluted air that circulates around the entire world. You see, the globalists have it figured out. This is the vector that they think is necessary to save the planet, and they, the globalists, believe that they're going to have to sacrifice some humans to save the planet for the protected elite who will inherit the Earth. Now, I don't agree with what they're doing, I don't agree with their tactics, but I'm trying to help you understand the way they're thinking and how they justify this to themselves and what they're willing to do and how many people that they are willing to kill, because it's a lot of people.
This paper predicted the coronavirus outbreak in China 1 year before it happened. It was published in March 2019, and it had this statement. It is generally believed that bad-born coronavirus will re-emerge to cause the next disease outbreak. In this regard, China is a likely hotspot. The challenge is to predict when and where, so that we can try our best to prevent such outbreaks. So, if this was published in March 2019 and coronavirus outbreak was announced in December 2019, why didn't anyone do anything during this whole time? The paper is titled Bat Coronavirus in China, and it was published by 4 researchers. This paper came from Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is located in Wuhan, the place where the outbreak began. The paper was received on the 29th of January 2019. Just to be clear, this is a review paper, and review papers take a while to write, which means the researchers have been working on writing this paper since 2018. So it was received on the 29th of January 2019 and published in the journal on the 2nd of March 2019. So that is 10 months before the outbreak. In this paper, the researchers expressed their concern over a virus that will emerge from bats. As they stated, it is highly likely that future SARS or MERS-like coronavirus outbreaks will originate from bats, and there is an increased probability that this will occur in China. Therefore, the investigation of bat coronaviruses becomes an urgent issue for the detection of early warning signs, which in turn minimizes the impact of such future outbreaks in China. In this paper, they also link bat to coronavirus before it was even confirmed. According to their hypothesis, since bats travel over long distances, they can have higher chances of picking up deadly pathogens from one location and transmit that virus into another location. And because bats are mammals, they will very likely eventually transmit these deadly pathogens into humans. They also predicted how the transmission of the virus from bats to humans may likely to occur. As they say, Chinese food culture maintains that live slaughtered animals are more nutritious, and this belief may enhance viral transmission. Because of the track record of how many similar viruses bats have hosted, in other words, viruses that have the same or similar genome, they predicted that bats will be the means of the transmission of the new virus into humans. So, with all of this information, why didn't anyone do something about this? Someone knew about this a year in advance and warned us. But still, these warnings didn't get enough attention. The researchers even published the paper in an open access journal, which means anyone can read the article. They even had it under Creative Commons license, which means anyone can copy-paste it and republish it anywhere with a proper attribution. So, was this a wild guess, or was there really a cover-up? Is it true that the Chinese government censored information about the virus until it was too late? This can't be a wild guess because the researchers used genetic data to build the profile of the potential emerging virus. They also compared the new data with previous outbreaks that happened with similar viruses before, such as SARS in 2003 and MERS in 2012. If the researchers knew about this, shouldn't they have made more efforts to alert the world? And if they did, was there someone to stop them? In the end, the real question should be, should the world punish countries that censor information about potential outbreaks of new deadly pathogens? One thing for sure, research papers on biology are endless, and they are becoming cramped. With so much data and so many publications on biology, it's hard to see which one is more important and in need for urgent attention. Maybe the prediction for the next outbreak is already published, but we just can't spot it or take it seriously.
GMOs are genetically modified organisms. They first appeared in the food industry in the 1990s. Why are farmers taking their own lives? And what does that have to do with GMO?
Глаз чешется.
Да.
Я начала свое расследование, потому что очень хотелось помочь сыну.
Glyphosate is a chemical widely used to kill weeds.
Glyphosate, the most widely used herbicide in the world that they are allowing to be sprayed in our food.
If they use glyphosate and it runs off, there's possible contaminations that they can occur.
If future scientists prove that GM products really are harmful and the human race decides to revert to a world free of GMO and glyphosate, would we even be able to? Have we passed the point of no return?
You can find it printed on certain cereals, chips, vegetables, even canned foods. But what does this label really reveal about your food?
With many topics in the food industry, it's something to educate yourself on and then make that decision at a personal level.
GMO stands for genetically modified organism. If your food has GMOs, it means the plant, crop, or seed has in some way been altered.
Potentially to make it resistant to more insects or resistant even to the pesticides used for those insects, so that the farmers have some perceived improved outcome. So those could be larger harvests, reduced bugs that destroy them, or it helps it grow or perform in a better way.
But what does that mean for the consumer?
The thing about GMOs is one thing they find is those type of foods may have more pesticides used on them because they're resistant to that. So our bodies may react to those pesticides. And they find it might change our microbiome. So if you're having digestive issues or other allergies, then it may cause internal issues that we're not necessarily thinking of.
Some of the highest GMO products are corn and soy, products that are often used to create other ingredients found in many of our processed foods.
People who have autoimmune type conditions or food sensitivities, food allergies may be more susceptible to the GMO type crops.
So in addition to noticing things like saturated fat, sodium, sugar, and calories in a product, health experts say it's also important to look for the non-GMO label to ensure you're getting the purest form of food. For Lee Health, I'm Lindsay Morton.
Hi guys, it's me again, Bill. Well, you should be outraged about this. And if you're not, there's something really wrong. If you love children as much as I do, and I love mine more than the world, I would do anything for them, but this is beyond wrong. If my kids were sitting here eating Cinnamon Toast Crunch, or maybe their favorite, Lucky Charms. Now, I was a contractor for 22 years, and we used to do paint prep, do cleaning and things like that. And I'm sitting there reading a box, and I noticed that it says it contains trisodium phosphate. This, TSP, let's see, trisodium phosphate, harmful if swallowed, eye irritant, skin irritant, if ingested, call poison control. Poison control. Let's see here. Trisodium phosphate. And it's not way down here with the vitamins. It's way up here. That's on Lucky Charms. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. We've got Star Wars. Trisodium phosphate. This is a carcinogen that we're feeding our kids. And General Mills is putting it in all of their stinking cereals that I have in my drawers. Now, I checked out the Kellogg's. Kellogg's did not have it. And I checked out the Post, Fruity Pebbles, in my cabinets. That did not have it. Now, if I sprinkled trisodium phosphate on my kids' cereal, if I put this on there, I would go to prison for poisoning my children. But yet, they're putting it in our cereals for our kids to eat. You guys, we need to stand up for something here. And this is one thing to stand up for. Let's speak for those children that can't speak for themselves, because this is an outrage. You need to call them. I don't care if it's rated as a food. I don't care what it gets rated as or anything. It's a carcinogen that eats away paint. It'll even say that it eats away aluminums. It will etch glass. And we're putting it in our food? Who thought of this idea? Is some guy sitting around that's a chef going, hey, pass me the sugar. Let's try a little more sugar on this. Wait, why don't you go on into the cabinet and grab some trisodium phosphate? Let's see how that tastes in it. Ooh, wow. Hey, it shrinks those little mushrooms that much better. You know, come on, people. You should be outraged. If you're outraged, share this with everybody, because we need to get this out of the cabinets of our kids are eating out of. We need to get it out now. Do this, act on it, share it with everybody you know, because this is wrong. Call me silly, but this is stupid. Stop it now.
Hello, my name is Sarah Burke, and I'm on board the Boehringer Ingelheim Science Quest mobile laboratory. Today we're going to learn how to extract iron from cereal. In order to do this experiment, you will need a blender, a strong magnet, an iron-fortified cereal, and water. To begin our experiment, we're going to pour our cereal into the blender. Then we're going to add water. We're going to place the lid on the blender and begin blending. Next, you're going to pour the mixture into a clear plastic container. Now let the mixture sit for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, take a strong magnet and begin swirling it around in the mixture for approximately 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, you should see iron filings appearing on the end of the magnet. So why do we find iron filings in cereal? Iron deficiency is one of the most common deficiencies in the United States. Putting iron in cereal helps us meet our daily requirements for iron.
What is labeled fluoride is not naturally occurring fluoride like you might find in the ground. It's actually a collection. It can be over 100 different chemicals, including some radioactive chemicals, including many cancer-causing chemicals, including heavy metals, neurologically damaging elements that are called fluoride. And then this is dumped into the water supply, and the cities have doctors and dentists convinced that this is somehow good for your teeth.
I think what you need to do is get some aerial shots of that plant, because you cannot see the devastation going on from just riding down the road. If you could get some aerial shots of that plant, I could point out what's going on, what's happening, you know, and point out where a lot of the pollution's going on and stuff like that.
Big part of it has to do with the fact that fluoride, which has changed where it comes from, has come from industries in which the fluoride that is being added to the water supply, in most cases, is actually classified as a toxic waste. And so the industry from which it came would have to pay all of the toxic waste disposal fees to get rid of it unless they can sell it to put into the municipal water supplies.
And that would be the aluminum and the fertilizer industries,
Aluminum
right?
Refining industries, fertilizer industries, yeah.
That's amazing. Now, has this been approved by the FDA?
As a rat poison and a roach poison. Yeah, I would call that approved.
I've actually heard that it's the active ingredient in like pesticides and herbicides.
Fluoride is the active ingredient in a huge number of pharmaceuticals. There's lots and lots of drugs in which fluoride is a part of the drug, which makes the drug even more toxic than it was. But fluoride is the active ingredient as far as the manufacturers are concerned in all of the toothpastes that they claim are to help reduce tooth decay, but that don't do that. And it is an approved rodenticide, and it's actually used in a number of different pesticides as a roach killer. What? I'm not a roach, and if I was, I wouldn't want to get killed anyway.
How many dental fillings do you have? A new study suggests the fewer the better, but it has nothing to do with your oral hygiene. It's about how much mercury is in your blood. Most dental fillings are made of amalgam, which is a mixture of mercury, silver, tin, and copper. For years, researchers warned amalgam could increase mercury levels in the blood, but no studies were robust enough for experts to know for sure, until now. A new study from the University of Georgia reports mercury levels in 14,703 Americans. The researchers discovered people with more than 8 amalgam fillings had over twice as much mercury in their blood compared to people with no fillings. Researchers controlled for age, ethnicity, gender, smoking, and seafood to make sure the majority of mercury was from the fillings and not another source. However, the levels are still within the limit that the EPA and WHO consider safe, which according to the American Dental Association means no conclusions about the safety of dental amalgam should be drawn from this study. Still, one researcher from the study says people should be careful if you have other exposures, like if you eat fish every day. Those amounts can add up in the body. If the body absorbs too much mercury, it can damage your brain, heart, immune system, kidneys, and lungs. There are alternatives to amalgam fillings, but they're more expensive and may not last as long. Consult with a dentist before making any changes to your teeth.
When you get something like this, you just want to go crawl in a hole. I had one tooth hurting, so when I went to the dentist and I let him talk me into replacing all of the silver fillings on the right side. So I got 4 bright new shiny silver fillings put in, and that's when everything started. Within a few weeks, I started noticing some weird neurological sensations, and I kept just sort of passing it off as something fleeting that would go away. But it kept building, the symptoms kept building. Then it affected my vision, and I had blurred vision in one eye. And then I had this weird ringing in my ear. I would be in a conversation with someone, and there's like this in my ear while I'm trying to talk to someone.
And tonight, Stacy is in San Francisco, sharing her story with the federal government.
7 months after that dental work, I got out of bed one morning and could not walk. And these mercury fillings are the trigger in many cases. After 2 decades in the news business, I know the truth, and the truth is silver mercury fillings are causing disease, and they are making people sick, keeping them sick, so help me God.
He was always laughing, you know, just the joy of life.
Little Benjamin Zeller Jr. was everything his parents had hoped for when he was born in early November 2003.
He would always be following you around on the floor, if not trying to, you know, throw a bottle at you or bite your toes.
This is how little Benjamin Zeller looks today. The now 4-year-old is in a comatose state, unable to talk, walk, or even hold his head up on his own.
And this was an adverse reaction to the vaccine. There's no question in my mind. Okay, we've had all the genetic testing.
The Zellers say within days after little Ben's MMR shot in November of '04, the child began changing drastically. A week later, he had a complete febrile seizure that almost killed him.
Went down to go change his diaper, and all of a sudden, he wasn't breathing.
The Zellers rushed their son to a nearby hospital. Doctors were able to save little Ben, but he never fully recovered, and the little boy, once full of life, was declared permanently brain damaged, and no one wanted to take responsibility.
For people to turn us away and call us crazy, it hurt me, it killed me.
But just last month, the Zellers received a major break in their case against the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services. In a landmark decision dated July 30th, the court ruled in favor of the family, finding little Ben would not have experienced the seizure disorder, but for the administration of the MMR vaccine.
This will open up floodgates of litigation.
The Zellers' attorney, Beverly Vissell, says the ruling is one of the first of its kind where family has proved the MMR vaccine negatively affected their child's health.
The link does not have to be direct. It could be circumstantial. And if the timeline is there, they will get compensation.
The Zellers may receive tens of millions of dollars in damages. For a young couple that was barely making it, the ruling is a godsend.
To have the courts recognize that I feel justice has been done.
Everything that little Ben needs, I want to be taken care of. That's all I care about, and that's what I hope is the outcome of this case.
Angela Sacitano, News Channel 5.
Did you know that sweat doesn't actually stink? The bad odor we smell comes from the bacteria that live on our skin. These bacteria metabolize the proteins and fatty acids in our sweat, causing body odor. That's where deodorant comes in, neutralizing and killing the bacteria. Antiperspirants work differently. Instead of fighting the odor, they bypass sweat altogether, blocking your pores with aluminum. This way, without sweat, the bacteria have no proteins or fatty acids from which to make the stinky smell. Sometimes you can buy a product that is both a deodorant and an antiperspirant. If you buy these products, you should know that they have certain health risks. Certain studies have already proven that the aluminum that is applied topically through antiperspirants with aluminum salts, such as aluminum hydrochloride, aluminum chloride, or aluminum zirconium complexes, can be absorbed into your body. All of these compounds can have toxic effects on your body in certain quantities. The worst part is that we are constantly being exposed to aluminum due to the use of kitchen utensils, containers, appliances, and construction materials. And that's where it becomes dangerous. Humans absorb aluminum through their skin. A study from 2001 shows that aluminum was still present in blood samples 15 days after using an antiperspirant. Once the aluminum enters your body, it spreads until it reaches your brain. The short-term side effects include memory loss, learning difficulties, lack of coordination, disorientation, mental confusion, cramps, heartburn, flatulence, and headaches. Research has shown that there is a higher incidence of Alzheimer's in people who have more contact with aluminum. A good way to avoid contact with aluminum is to use an aluminum-free deodorant, preferably made with natural ingredients. Here is how to naturally avoid body odor. Recipe 1. Ingredients: the peel of 3 lemons, the peel of 3 oranges, 1 liter of water, 3 spoonfuls of baking soda, 1 cup of sea salt. Instructions: grate the fruit peels and boil them in the water. Strain the mixture and let it cool. Add the salt and baking soda. Mix it well and store it in another container. You can use it under your arms or on another area of your body. You can even use it in your bath water. Recipe 2. This natural deodorant is made with lemon and is very effective. Ingredients: 100 milliliters of water, 20 milliliters of 90% alcohol, 4 spoonfuls of rosemary, 5 drops of lemon essence, 10 drops of witch hazel extract. Instructions: boil some water, and when it starts to boil, add the rosemary leaves. Turn off the stove and let the liquid sit for about 10 minutes with the lid on. Add the alcohol, lemon essence, and witch hazel right after that. Mix well and store in a glass jar. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. For more recipes and tips, subscribe to the channel.
New at 5, California health officials have a new message for cell phone users. KPIX5's Susie Steimel is in Berkeley with some brand new state guidelines. Susie?
Well, Liz, don't sleep with your cell phone under your pillow and don't ever have it in your pocket. That's the new message coming from the state today. Now, stores that sell cell phones in Berkeley issued this same warning more than a year ago. Now the state's jumping on board.
We recognize that there are a lot of people in the general public that have some concerns about their cell phones and whether the cell phone is using a cell phone is safe.
This is a big first for the California Department of Public Health. It's releasing guidelines about harmful cell phone radiation and how you can avoid it.
When you sleep, you keep the cell phone at least arm's length from your body. And also not carrying your cell phone in your pocket, having it either in your purse or not carrying it with you.
The research suggests cell phones could increase our risk for brain cancer and tumors, low sperm count, headaches, impaired memory, hearing, and sleep.
Currently, we're not doing a good job in regulating the radiation from these devices. In fact, we're doing an abysmal job.
Dr. Joel Moskowitz of UC Berkeley says this is a long time coming. He's partially responsible for bringing this information to light. He sued the Department of Public Health for refusing to release information about the dangers of cell phone radiation back in 2009. He won.
People are being injured and harmed by the delay in having this information accessible to them.
So the question remains, does this release mean the state now believes cell phones are dangerous?
Not at all. Our position is that the science is evolving.
The state said that one of the biggest reasons why it chose to release these numbers now is because, or release these warnings now, excuse me, is because new numbers are out showing that cell phone use is higher than ever. It's 95% of Americans that use cell phones on a regular basis, and most kids are getting cell phones by age 10. We're live in Berkeley. Susie Steimel, KPIX 5.